welcome to another edition of the Charles Faram Catch-Ups. We're doing a 5 minutes with Farams today, and I'm very pleased to be joined by Darren Batten of Palmer's Brewery. Good morning, Darren.
Good morning, how are you?
I'm very well, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, very good, thank you.
Thanks for joining us today. For those of the people who are listening who don't know you, perhaps you could just give us a bit of a brief about yourself and what you do at the brewery.
Right, I'm head brewer and director at Palmer's Brewery. I joined as a biology graduate 29 years ago, became head brewer 15 years ago, qualified through the IBD, Diploma in Brewing, and was fortunate to become head brewer of somebody else's family business. I started stacking pallets, and now I'm a director and head brewer and tend to run a brewery on my everyday life.
Fantastic. That's great. Really good. So you've seen it right from the bottom up, if you like. All the jobs you've done there and everything is covered by you.
Yeah, pretty much. I've pretty much done every job in the brewery over the 29 years. You know, whether it was, and I still mucking, and I was washing cask yesterday on the cask washer because we had one of our team off, and I spent 2 hours on the cask washer knocking out cask and washing cask. So I think as a head brewer, you just muck in where you need to.
Needs must, yeah, where you need to, you get stuck in, don't you? Yeah, excellent. Well, yes, thanks again for joining us for the 5 minutes with Farams. We've got some 5 minutes with Farams questions that we always ask people, and I'll run through the questions with you, Darren. So the first one is always the difficult one to ask: is what's your favourite hop?
Yeah, well, I'm probably pretty traditional in the hops we've used in the brewery, so I have much less experience of different hops. So I'm going to be like most people and say Citra is a fantastic hop. The reason being is that we brewed just our own brands for many, many years, and sort of 5 or 6 years ago, we decided that we would do some seasonals, and I picked Citra as an aroma hop in a beer. It was my first ever creation, my first ever seasonal that was totally in my own work. It was a beer called Comas, which we launched, and it was an absolute storm. Citra just gives you that massive aroma and just that fantastic light flavour in a summer seasonal. And I now put it into one of my keg beers. So Citra is pretty much a firm favourite because of the history, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And so what your main hops in your traditional beers are Goldings, are they?
Yeah, Goldings as a bitter string, and we use Savinsky Styrian Goldings as an aroma hop. We use a bit of First Gold, and then a few more different hops and seasonals nowadays. So
fantastic. And another very difficult one to answer is, what's your favourite beer?
You know, here I really should say Tally Ho, because it's my own beer and it's fantastic and it wins so many awards. But I'm going to say something like Jaipur IPA, because I just think it's such a different flavour, and it's, you know, Robert Thornbridge brews that beer and it's become quite a big brand now. But I just really enjoy. We don't really get it down in the south in pubs, so if I find it in a pub, I think, God, a pint of Jaipur really does go down well. And I know it's strong, I know it's not a session beer, but I just think it's one of those beers that is just so different. And I really do like a pint of Jaipur if I can get one.
It is a very nice beer, isn't it? Very, very drinkable. For a higher gravity beer, it's a bit too sessionable, really, isn't it?
Yeah, very much so. Yeah.
Excellent. And what's your favourite food and beer pairing?
Well, I was going to say a packet of crisps and a pickled egg in a pub, because I'm really a pub drinker. But I think fish and chips in a nice pub with a pint of, say, a nice Citra hopped pale ale or a keg, a craft keg. You know, I just think you can't beat that. And I think it's about location. I think it's where you are. I think drinking in a nice pub garden, the sunshine. We've got some lovely coastal pubs, and fish and chips with a nice pint of Dorset Pale is probably
beautiful.
You know, what makes me feel happiest.
Yeah, there's nothing like looking out over the sea while you're drinking a pint and eating some fish and chips, is there? That's quite a nice, unique experience in the UK, I would think.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And what's your favourite beer destination?
Well, in the UK, I'm probably going to say there's a pub in Croyd called the Thatch, and it sells a lot of St Austell beer. It's a free house, and I've got a VW camper, and we often end up in Croyd Bay with my wife. We do a bit of cycling, do a bit of bodyboarding. End of the day, you get into the Thatch, and you have a pint of Tribute or a pint of Proper Job sat in their garden. Is just the best place to drink beer in the UK, I think. I'll also say, I think I was in Sydney a few years ago, and I stayed in a place called the Lord Nelson Brewery Hotel, and this was probably about 10 years ago. And it was one of those places that was brewing English style ales well before the craft revolution. And I stayed in the hotel because I knew it was a brewery. It was a brew pub, and it's in the Rocks in Sydney. And it is just the most beautiful setting. Looks across Circular Quay at Sydney. And I actually went and mashed in with the brewer one morning when I was staying there, and gave him I took a Palmer's tankard, a ceramic 1794 tankard, and he said, "Well, you're older than most of Australia." So we pretty much, and that's one of those places, iconic places in the world that I really, really like.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so
yeah, fantastic. I think we sometimes forget the history that we have in the UK, and certainly I remember the first time I went out to the West Coast looking at hops, probably 20 years ago now, and realised that Seattle was only founded about the same time as some of the colleges in Cambridge and Oxford, and you just think to yourself, wow, what the world must have been like at that time. It's absolutely incredible. But the brewery the Palmer's was obviously established well before that as well. I think it was 1860 something like that. Seattle was first discovered, so it's sort of similar for Palmer's, but much earlier.
Yeah, we were 1794, so yeah.
Wow.
So
yeah, amazing. And what's your favourite pub in the UK? Well, you've already answered that one, haven't you? Because that came as a favourite beer destination as well. So that's all good.
One of them really. I think, I often say that your local pub is probably your favourite pub because you spend so much time in it. I live in a little village on the coast, and we've got the Three Horseshoes in my village, and it's one of the best food pubs around, and it does fantastic beer. There's a whole range, not because I live in the village. In fact, that my former head brewer Adrian also lives in the village, so they've got 2 brewers living in the village. In fact, they've got Jason Perfect from Liberation lives in the village as well. So we're quite discerning in our beer taste, so they keep fantastic ale. The other one is the Pandora Inn on the Foy Estuary. I don't know, at Mailer Bridge. It's a St Austell pub right on. I don't know if you've been there. We had a head brewer
yeah.
a few years ago.
I've not been to that pub, but yeah.
The Pandora is another fantastic setting, and you can get there by boat, and you can sit on the jetty and have a pint.
Beautiful.
The other one that I really love if I'm over in the east is the Anchor at Walmerswick.
Yes.
It's a fantastic food place. Drinking a pint of Adnams, sat there in that pub is another fantastic place. We're very fortunate as brewers. We do travel around to other people's breweries, so we tend to go into the flagship pubs of these breweries. So which is very fortunate, and we tend to drink a few pints there.
There are some special experiences traveling around and visiting different brewers. I know I'm very privileged to be able to do that as well, and we do get to go to some fantastic pubs. And I think when I retire eventually, I don't know when that will be, but I think what my ambition will be to go around all these different pubs again and just go and try them all out again while I'm in retirement. That'll be quite a good fun, I think. Maybe take a train or a taxi.
Take a driver.
So, and what's the one item in the brewery you couldn't live without?
I was going to say my PC, because nowadays a brewer's job is very much about legislation, looking after everything and keeping good records, etc. But I'm going to say we have a set of imperial spanners, ring spanners in the brew house. All of our sluices, our top fermenting sluices, have different size nuts on, and they're all 100 years old. And to try and find a spanner to undo these nuts when you're skimming the yeast, there is one set of ring spanners that sits in a place, and it has to be put back there. So that set of spanners is crucial, especially on a weekend when you're in a rush and you've got to skim the beer and somebody's not put the spanner you need back. That's the one thing so those spanners are pretty crucial to my happy weekends in the brew house. So
a good answer, very good answer. And what's your favorite song, album, artist, music to play during a brew day, or do you not have music on?
No, we do. We have sort of like a battle between a bit of Radio 2, sometimes a bit of Radio 1. I've got one lad in his 20s in the brew house, and he tends to flick it to Radio 1 or local radio. Personally, I like a bit of 80s music, the vintage that we are, A song that always comes to mind is Gold. We do a bit called Dorset Gold. So Spandau Ballet's Gold, we tend to hum it to ourselves when we're mashing in the gold. Somebody always comes up with the words gold, and everybody starts singing this song. I was out actually doing London with Tony Hadley, the lead singer of Spandau Ballet. We used to do a beer for a posh restaurant. He was there at a do that I was at, and I spent an evening drinking with Tony Hadley. And I must have been like a starstruck teenager. Oh my God, you were Spandau Ballet, and I'm like, so probably that 90s era, 80s era of music.
Fantastic.
That sort of is my vintage, and there's a lot more 80s music coming back nowadays.
Absolutely, that's a great answer. Good answer, yeah. And if you weren't in the brewing industry, what would you be doing?
I guess I would probably be working in a pub or hospitality. You know, I grew up working in a pub from the age of 11, stocking the bar, collecting pots, being the pot man, working behind the bar as I was a student. And really, I think that's probably what attracted me really to brewing. I spent a year living in Kent when I was in my degree and discovered Shepherd Neame beers as a real ale when I was a student, and then came back to working in a pub. So I would probably find myself in hospitality doing something. You know, my ideal role probably a ski chalet or something, being a chalet manager or that sort of thing. But you know, I sort of fell into brewing, but coming from a working in a pub background. So,
yeah, very nice, very good. Yeah, I think we're very lucky with pubs, aren't we? We have such great atmospheres, and once you've got hooked into that and realised the benefits that it can bring to people, it's just wonderful to be around that sort of gathering, isn't it? Really, in a local pub, there's nothing better.
Yeah, you never know who's going to walk in. You know, we'll get to it in a minute, but you know, you never know where your next job's coming from, because it could be a customer in your pub's going to be your future boss, and you know, they're a wonderful place to meet different people from all social classes, all walks of life.
Even Tony Hadley.
Even Tony Hadley, yeah. Yeah, it's amazing, you know, the people you see in your village pub. I live in a village where Billy Bragg lives, again, that era, so you often see Billy wander in the pub for a pint, so, you know, he's just Billy to us, but people go, oh my God, he's quite famous, you know?
There you go, incredible, isn't it? Yeah, very good. And who is your biggest inspiration in brewing, Darren?
You know, I'm going to say a very good friend of you and my, Roger Ryman, because Roger always had time for other brewers, and he packaged for me for many years. You know, if I had a question in brewing, Roger would be my first point of call. You know, just, you know, his knowledge of brewing, his technical ability as a brewer. And even though I was a brewer about the same time as Roger in a very small brewery compared with Roger's meteoric climb to fame with St. Austell, he would always pick up the phone, always answer an email. And I think he was an inspiration to many, many brewers, and a great friend and sadly missed.
Yeah, well said. No, really, really nice guy, Roger, and very well said. Yeah, no, excellent. And what got you into brewing? Well, I think you sort of covered that earlier on, but
yeah, I was as a biology graduate working in a pub. I was caution health and safety trained because I spent a year in 89-90 working for Shell Research in a lab in Sittingbourne. Came back to the village, worked behind the bar, and Adrian Wood lived in the village, drank in my pub, and he was head brewer at Palmer's at the time. Somebody left and nobody'd written anything down for years, and they wanted somebody that could understand what they were doing and maybe write some instructions. So my stacking pallets was really watching what the bottling line did and worked out why and how it filled stuff. So I spent some time running that area and very quickly became production manager, etc. And the rest is history, really. So Adrian Wood sat in a bar saying, "Do you want a job?" Me saying, "No, not really," and my dad saying, "Oh, I think you ought to, really." So, yeah,
it's funny how these,
into brewing.
Yeah, it's funny how these things happen, isn't it? It's just amazing how that how all clicks into place. Just these things sometimes just work like that. It's great, really good. And what's your favourite beer festival?
I'm going to have to say Tucker's Maltings, because I've been on the committee for probably the last 10 years or more. You know, just because it's a big festival in the Southwest and we get all you guys down to judge on the Thursday.
Yeah,
and you know, there's some great pubs in Newton Abbot. We will end up in the old cider bar drinking cider when we really don't want to drink cider. I say it's a great festival, and I think it's just, you know, it's changing a bit as the Maltings has closed and moved into Marquees, but I think it's the people make a festival, and I think it just has a great following. You get a great load of Southwest brewers there and people from the industry. So that's probably one of my favourites. The other one, there's a festival at the Banks Arms on the Isle of Purbeck. It's run by Isle of Purbeck Brewery, so Pippa runs that, and it's in August each year. The Banks Arms looks across Poole Harbour, so it looks at Sandbanks, and it's just the most iconic setting. She does a load of beer swaps, puts on about 50 beers, and you get about 2,000 people sat on a piece of grass opposite the pub, looking over the harbour. I've taken the camper up there a couple of times and helped Pippa behind the bar, and you know, people at the end of the evening cycle down the 2 miles to the Sandbanks ferry to get back to Poole at the end of the festival, all drunk on bikes. It's just an amazing beer festival, but it's more of a social for the people of Sandbanks and the surrounding area.
Sounds brilliant. Sounds brilliant. I must admit, I haven't been to that one. That sounds like an awesome one to look up. But hopefully we'll get back to beer festivals again soon with the the way things are progressing, fingers crossed, we've missed our beer festival for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Tuckers has been postponed till 2022. You know, we made a difficult decision not to hold it this year, but it'll be bigger, better, and you know, back to Tuckers Morton's how it should be. We don't want to do it with less people or with restrictions, so we'll move it to April 22, and we'll all end up there again.
Well done. It's a great festival. It's one of the first I went to, actually, when I started working at Faram 30 years ago. How long has the festival been going? Because I went to one of the first one or two, I think.
22 or 23 years-ish.
Yeah, it goes back a long way. I remember sponsoring it in the very early days with John and Jenny Aries down there, and they very kindly gave me a reference so that I could judge at the Great American Beer Festival one year as well. They asked for references, whether you could be judged, whether you could judge there. And John and Jenny very kindly helped me out with that, which was great. But yeah, no, great festival there, great festival. And what's your favourite interest or hobby outside brewing?
I have a VW California camper van, which I stick the bikes on the back, and my wife and I go off to all sorts of places and take the camper and camp for the weekend and go cycling. So I'm a mountain biker, so I cycle most weekends, sort of get out with the group and do 25, 30 miles on a Sunday. I'm a big sports fan of all sorts of sport. You know, I tell my wife I shouldn't have Sky Sports because I would just watch it all the time. So I don't have Sky Sports, but I'll always watch sport. In the winter, I love to ski. You know, I've skied a lot over the years as a youngster, and more recently, I've got a couple of friends with chalets in the Alps, and it's very fortunate. You know, you've got mates that do well for themselves, buy themselves a nice 5-bedroom chalet, and invite you out for a couple of weeks skiing. So,
Can't be bad.
So winter sports, I like to ski with the boys. And I've just got back into playing a bit of golf. I've just bought myself a new set of golf clubs in lockdown, and played a lot of golf as a youngster. And I'm just starting to swing the old irons again, and getting back into a little bit of golf at weekends, probably more to keep fit after giving up cricket and football and things like that. I just need someone to get me out and hit.
Great
a few balls.
idea. Yeah, got to stay fit, haven't you? Got to stay active. It's good. That's good stuff. And what was the last beer you brewed?
Well, we're brewing IPA this morning, but yesterday we brewed Dorset Gold. So at the moment, just trying to get back into brewing our range of beers, and so Dorset Gold yesterday and an IPA this morning. So I mashed in this morning at 8 o'clock on a small brew of Dorset Gold. With only gardens open, we're trying to brew just some small brews to keep the yeast going, and praying for fine weather, and happily keeping the beers and getting Casco back in pubs.
Absolutely. And did you sing to yourself while you were brewing Gold?
I cannot get out of my mind. It's one of those songs that you just hum to yourself as you're mashing in. So then everybody else comes along, you know.
Exactly what you mean. You've got me singing it in my head.
Yeah, exactly.
And Fuggles or Goldings?
Obviously Goldings. You know, it's been the stalwart of our recipes for 100 years or more. We've been buying Goldings. And yeah, it's just a bittering hop that we use in everything, pretty much. Occasionally we do a seasonal, we'll change the bittering hop, but you know, we know that Goldings is going to give us consistent performance. It's the yields and the alphas are pretty good every year. You get what you pay for, and it's good English Goldings. We always rub them with you and pick the best ones, and so we're committed to Goldings recipes somewhat. We even put contains English Goldings on our beer mats. So yeah, we're really committed to it.
It's a good variety, definitely. And what's next for the brewery? What are you up to next, and what can we look forward to?
Well, a bit of a time of change, because John Palmer, our MD, his daughter Emily's just joined the board, and she's going to be coming as MD. So we're going to have a new, young, forward-thinking MD. Her background is a biology degree, so she's a scientist by background, and then she was in finance with Rothschilds for a few years. She's recently got married and moved back to West Dorset, and she's about to take over the company, and John will become our executive chairman, or our chairman, and Emily will come in as a young, fresh mind into her family business. She's the 5th generation of Palmers in the business.
Fantastic.
And, so exciting times, really. So she's starting to ask a few questions and find out what we do, and listen to a few answers and see what we can and can't do. I think she'll embrace the digital era, where we'll do a lot more online stuff, and you know, I've done a few Meet the Brewer Zooms already and things like that. So
and here we are.
So I think interesting times. I think we have to as a traditional company, people think, oh, Palmer's, they've been around for 227 years, they're old fashioned, but we can't sit there and go, we've been here for ages, we've got our own pubs, we'll do our own thing. We've got to move with the times, we've got to develop brands, produce seasonals, make sure our own core brands are great. You know, we launched a craft keg a couple of years ago. You know, as an old traditional brewer, we bought 750 brand new kegs for ourselves. You know, don't rent anything, let's get on with it and do it properly. We're very fortunate to do that. And we try and move with the times and try and keep up with the brewing market and what our customers want. So
yeah, absolutely. No, I think the market is always changing. It's one thing I've learned in the industry. You can never sit still. It's always, you always got to be looking at new things, what's going on, what's changing, and people's you know, ideas about going out to drink. You know, the younger generation don't tend to drink quite as much on a night. You and I will probably go out and have 6 or 8 pints quite easily without worrying about it too much. And now people tend to drink a little bit less with higher gravity. More people are drinking at home. Things are always changing, aren't they?
Yeah, definitely. You know, I'm very much a pub drinker. You know, I've grown up working in pubs, and I could probably drink as much free beer as I wanted at home in bottles, but I'd rather go and buy beer in my local pub, because I think it's about the social aspect of drinking in pubs.
Yeah.
You know, where you are, remembering where you had that pint, and I think is really important. I tend to drink wine at home with my wife, you know, but I think we're changing our attitude. We do go out and play skittles and have 6 or 7 pints, but I tend to just drink weaker beers because we have to mash in the mornings, us brewers, so we have to get up early. So,
that's right. Yeah. Well, a good 3.84% beer is perfect if you're having a bit of volume there with it as well. It just spreads the load a bit, doesn't it?
Yeah, and it does help my skittles. If I drink a strong beer, I just can't eat anything by the end of the night. So a lot of your viewers may not be aware of Long Island Skittles. It's very much a West Country game, but it's taken quite seriously. I've known a club going for 105 years, and I'm a captain of the side in that team.
That's fantastic. So, yeah. I have played Skittles on many occasions in my younger days. I haven't played lately actually, but it's great fun. Skittles and a few beers and good camaraderie makes a great evening out. Great fun. Bit of ribbing. You can't beat it, can you?
Yeah, and it gets people in the pub on a winter's night when they've got 12 drinking men in that will play Skittles that may not be there if there wasn't a Skittle alley. So yeah, it's good for pubs as well.
All good fun. Yeah, absolutely great fun. No, well, that's great, Darren. It's as always, it's great to catch up with you, and thanks very much for spending some time. The 5 minutes is probably a bit more than 5 minutes, but that's good. It's good to get your views, and very interesting chat. And hopefully everybody will catch up with us again next time on 5 Minutes with Farams and our catch-ups. We'll be doing a lot more throughout the season with being in the hop yards and meeting other brewers as well. So again, thanks, Darren, for joining us, and we'll catch up and see you soon.
Thanks for inviting me.